So hence our collaboration and trying to, of course, promote how local governments and mayors are promoting transparency and open government at local level. So Jose, the session is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diana. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Diputación Barcelona as well for hosting us in this very lovely environment. So, as Diana just mentioned, I do think that, in my humble opinion, we saved the best for last, but I might be a little bit biased. And we are going to be talking about public procurement. And it's a topic that, whether we like it or not, it creeps into the conversations that we are already having. If you remember earlier this morning, we've already mentioned a little bit about public procurement as part of the innovation processes. And it is crucial to the work that we do, because through public procurement is that we can deliver a lot of the services and a lot of the commons that were mentioned earlier today as well. Now, if you have a sense of how much money we're talking about, it's in the trillions of dollars, around $9 trillion, and a large percentage of it is executed. It's done through the local levels, whether regional and cities and municipalities. So there is a need to be able to identify how we innovate and how we make these processes much more effective, much more inclusive, and ensure that we are delivering not only due process, that means making sure that the public procurement follows the rules and the regulations, but that public procurement is strategic in a way in which it can do more than one thing. Not only get those goods, but how we're getting those goods, and what else could we advance in terms of the SDGs. So I think that we can all agree that this session is going to be incredibly important. Even if you don't have a sticker that says "I heart public procurement," it is something that we all need to discuss more about. So for this, we're going to have the same dynamic that we did before. We're going to have two sections where we're going to have our presentations. In the middle, we're going to be able to open up to some of your questions. And I'm really happy to have this panel here today. We have, excuse me, Eduardo Esteban Polanco, who's the mayor of Las Terrenas in the Dominican Republic. We have Clarissa Agustin, International Project Coordinator of the South Africa Local Government Association. We have Roy Sidi Mahat, Head of the Sustainability of Hang Tuah Haya Municipal Council in Malaysia. And of course, I have Glenn Crafts, Head of Commercial at Statistics New Zealand. So if you saw from that list, this panel is going to bring us very different perspectives in terms of region, in terms of context, in terms of roles. So, without further ado, I would like to kick us off with Eduardo to tell us a little bit more about how public procurement is being used to innovate and promote inclusion and efficiency. Eduardo, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to share this podium with you. My name is Eduardo Esteban Polanco, and I'm the mayor of the touristic and multicultural municipality of Las Terrenas in the Atlantic coast in the northeast of the Dominican Republic. Las Terrenas. Let me give you a little bit of background information about my municipality before I dig into the question related to public procurement. I would like to give you a little bit of background information and important statistics for you to better understand the specificities of the region I run. Las Terrenas is a multicultural and touristic municipality in the northeast of the Dominican Republic. We host 18 nationalities. Our town has 111 square kilometers, and our population is 1,275 inhabitants. Nonetheless, 25% of, 25%, there's an extra 25% of population because there are a lot of second homes. We have the privilege of having around 26 kilometers of coastline and beaches, many of them are still virgin, and our allocated budget is 1.5 million to run all these complexities. I believe all these figures are important to understand the importance of the region and also the budget, the allocated budget, because, you know, we went from being a coastal, tiny town to living a transition towards becoming a touristic destination with a label. Las Terrenas is a label in the Dominican Republic, and the allocated budget does not correspond to our reality today, right? It's the same old budget we had when we were a little town in the middle of nowhere. So in our quest to find allies, to increase our budget, to comply with our mandate, our per capita expenditure is $58, which is, as you can understand, having a negative impact. And we have 1 billion euros invested in private infrastructure, in real estate. So all this is important to understand the context. Let me now speak about innovation in procurement in the Dominican Republic. Oh, apologies, because I had graphs to illustrate the statistics I mentioned before. In any case, here is our population, our budget, $1.5 million, and our extension is 11.4 square kilometers, and the per capita expenditure is $58.3. So I would like to congratulate and commend the UNDP, because last year they supported us in implementing a strategic plan. Thanks to the support of the UNDP, they have proven to be key allies, because there is a specificity. We are leading the transition. We are moving from being a tiny village to being a touristic destination. And the only way to find the available resources has to do with alliances, and more importantly, a PPP with the private sector. As I said before, the private sector has invested $1 trillion, and we have a budget of $1.5 million, which makes an important gap. So let me get hands-on, and let me talk about the procurement bill. In the case of the Dominican Republic, the bill was adopted in year 2006. It is a rather young bill compared to that in other countries. Nonetheless, this bill was the result of a demand. A demand coming from society. Our inhabitants wanted to have a legal framework to avoid local governments to fund their political campaigns. Because, you know, when you lack a sound, robust legal framework, even if, of course, there were accountability mechanisms in the past, not all public representatives have proven to be ethical in their behavior. So this bill was adopted thanks to the social pressure. Of course, this bill is insufficient, and we consider that one of the main shortcomings of the national bill on public procurement is that it does not reflect correctly the reality in tiny municipalities. The bill is very much oriented to large villages with state institutions, large companies, etc. But the bill somehow leaves behind the regions. For example, in my region, one of the main barriers or problems we are confronted with is that there is a clear lack of suppliers, of service suppliers. The bill forces us to procure through a portal. In the Dominican Republic, the digitalization process is moving well, but there is a clear lack of suppliers at the local level, and this is one of the main barriers. This is one of the main problems we are confronted with in the way towards a ethical procurement process. So the bill asks us to procure in the private market, but there's a clear lack of suppliers. So we thought, maybe we can be part of the solution. And in fact, we came up with a proposal which was then replicated and adapted and helped us improve the bill. As a local government, we promoted the inclusion of informal entities and individuals. We made them part of the process. We started a program to formalize professionals. We wanted to raise awareness about the importance of engaging and participating in the process. At the same time, we came up with a work plan for micro companies and SMEs. This proved to be an important occasion to enhance transparency and participation. Now let me go to my apologies, I got off track. In the implementation of these potential solutions, we obtained positive outcomes, amongst which the integration of many new players in the public procurement system. When it comes to accountability and transparency, we managed to develop a more participatory approach. In a nutshell, if you allow me, allow me to share a few lessons learned related to inclusion, transparency, efficiency, and diversity. When it comes to inclusion, we clearly understood that inclusion is about justice, and we believe so because giving access to public procurement to citizens reinforces not only social justice, but also the responsibility and the mandate of those in charge of the city who work for public good. Now, reinforcing transparency, the Dominican Republic has done an important leap forward in the field of transparency. Our national government has put transparency at the center, and in fact, today we have adopted a constitutional amendment to avoid an alteration in the mandate of the president, the national prosecutor. It is very important to grant independence, judicial independence, and this is the way forward. Now, we need to include new actors, and we need to enhance competition by revamping the system. We will be more transparent when we will be open so that as many players as possible can be part of public procurement processes when accounts are transparent and open. So as I said, regarding efficiency and the participation of local suppliers have contributed to dynamizing our economy and to offer services that better respond to the needs of our community. Let me be brief here. We want to focus, we focus the problem. We have achieved positive outcomes, and we have seen the opportunity to be more efficient, more inclusive, more transparent. In fact, in this picture you can see here, with the UNDP, we certified hundreds of professionals. They were certified, and now they are part of the formal sector. Today we have a very rich local ecosystem. The economy is up and running. The local government today plays a secondary role, and the private sector has grown exponentially. It has skyrocketed, and in fact the best way to promote social justice is by engaging as many players as possible. The best possible way of promoting transparency is by being open and oriented towards participation. And this is our commitment. Thank you.
Thank you, Eduardo. I think it's a really good example that brings in together a couple of elements. One is this, what Rogelio had mentioned before, that the problem raises a need for innovation. And in this case, the fact that the national law wasn't necessarily adequate, the fact that your municipality is growing and you have this need to adapt, led you to look at the public procurement process not only as a static process, but more of a vision on how it can be used for greater inclusion, to address the informal sector, to become it more formal as well, and the fact that you are being able to engage and use and leverage this public procurement process in that way, hopefully is going to bring many more successes. Now, talking about looking at different aspects and some of the problems that some of the local governments are facing, I would like to, no, I'm sorry. Actually, we have now a couple of minutes for questions from the rest of the panelists. So before I go to Clarissa, Glenn, Clarissa, and Rosaidi, if you want to ask any questions of the mayor.
Obviously, the rapid change is both an opportunity and a bit of a disaster. Was there any key markets that you focused on initially, and were there any key areas of your community that got left behind?
Bueno, lo vamos a responder.
Are we going to answer? First, we listen to all the questions and then we'll answer.
Okay, no, it's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. One of my questions was around, you mentioned transparency and also involving SMMEs in the process. How did you do that in terms of involving them, and how involved are they in the transparency of procurement? Do they have any say, like oversight on the procurement process? I'm just wanting to know that. Thanks.
Okay, great presentation. And just I'm wondering how your city has actually encourage the supplier or the private to become more responsible or more transparent in terms of the public procurement due to the city target to leverage the public procurement. Thank you.
Eduardo, please.
Bueno, primeramente.
Well, first of all, are there any sectors of the community that have been left behind? Well, we have a very important challenge, which is that the community should be empowered, engaged, and participating. Oftentimes, communities nowadays, in the era of social media, many people post comments but don't get engaged. And the idea of not leaving anyone behind, there are very important initiatives that we need to carry out in the Dominican Republic In the municipalities, we have these participatory budgets where we develop work together with the community, but we develop the work that the community requires of us, demands of us, not what the mayor wants. And through that initiative, we've slowly but surely met the demands of the community, trying precisely not to leave anyone behind and doing what the community demands and not necessarily what the mayor wants. As to the second question, we have a transactional portal, and it is compulsory to comply with all of the tools established in this portal. The transactional portal is regulated by other entities outside of the town council. So we have 3 institutions that watch over us, and there is a series of terms and conditions that we need to comply with. And in one way or another, the people are engaged because they know how this works. Actually, a public tender can be cancelled by the community if things are not clear enough. So the best way to integrate, to implement transparency in public procurement is having empowered the entire community. But also the design, the software we use for these public tenders doesn't only depend on the community in the internal procurement body. The accountancy of the Republic, the Minister of Finance, everyone is following this up, making sure that everything is complied with. And answering the third question, the truth is that people were afraid of getting involved in public tenders because they, in the case of the municipality of Las Terrenas, they did not want to get involved with the state. There is so much labor in the private sector, so much investment in the private sector that oftentimes people are not interested in participating in public procurement and public tenders or promoting public services of the state. They don't pay well, payment takes a long time, but the private sector is very dynamic. And this is a challenge that we have ahead of us. But what the law includes is that we should be more open so that there is transparency. We should be more inclusive. People should understand the need to engage and participate and to become key stakeholders in the processes of their communities. In the end, the things that we do are for the community. The goods that we acquire go straight into the community. And this means that with so many people participating, transparency is promoted. But it is also thanks to the diversity of the people, and this is what makes procurement inclusive, participative, but also more transparent. We are moving in that direction for now.
We appreciate that example. And as I said, you mentioned the fact that many other actors can support and are related to these public procurement processes at the local level. And one of the very important actors as well is local government associations. So with that, I would like to invite Clarissa to tell us a little bit about the challenges and opportunities that you've seen and how the South African Local Government Association has been able to collaborate and support in that aspect to the local governments in South Africa. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly navigate, yeah? Up or down? Oh. Okay, thanks so much. I'm Clarissa Augustine. I'm from the South African Local Government Association in South Africa. And I will be discussing some of the common challenges that we have in local government in South Africa. So just to give you a bit of a background, South Africa's population is estimated over 63 million people as of July 2024, which shows a growth of 1.33% since mid-2023, which is almost back to pre-pandemic rates. The increase is driven by more births than deaths and migration between the provincial regions as well as migration from neighboring countries. The country ranks about 23rd most populous globally and has about 51% female representation. Budget expenditure, South Africa's cities spend substantial amounts annually on services and infrastructure to meet the needs of the growing urban populations. For the 23-24 fiscal year, the total budget expenditure across major metropolitan areas was approximately 616 billion, 32 billion US dollars. And key spending areas include operational costs. This covers everyday services like water, electricity, sanitation, and public safety. Capital investments, funds allocated for buildings and upgrading infrastructure such as roads, housing, and public transit. This expenditure aims to improve the quality of life for residents while addressing urban challenges and promoting sustainable development. The expenditure per capita, on average, South Africa's cities spend around $550 to $600 per person annually. This figure reflects the cost of providing essential services and maintaining infrastructure. The spending varies by municipality, with larger cities generally investing more per capita than smaller resource-constrained municipalities. So the problem that we find in South Africa's cities is that they struggle to manage municipal budgets due to slow revenue growth, poor collection rates, and increasing demands in rapidly urbanizing areas. In the 23-24 fiscal year, the total municipal spending planned at 32 billion USD, but by mid-year, only 58.4% of projected revenue had been collected. This revenue shortfall weakens the financial stability needed for essential services and infrastructure. And in South Africa, between 10 to 20% of the population is considered indigent, and those are just those that have registered, meaning they cannot afford basic services like water and electricity. Municipalities also provide assistance such as subsidies to help these households access essential services. Eligibly, it is often based on factors like the income level as well as the property value. And the budget inequality adds to the challenge. Wealthier metros like City of Joburg or City of Cape Town can spend more per person, while the smaller municipalities face funding shortages and limited spending power. These disparities affect service delivery, with underfunded areas struggling to maintain the infrastructure needs, especially since conditional grants often come with strict requirements. Effective budget reforms, better revenue collection, and targeted financial support are necessary to ensure that all the municipalities can meet community needs sustainably. So this is our solution. SALGA supports municipalities and cities by offering a wide range of services, tools, and advocacy efforts aimed at improving the governance, the financial management, service delivery, and sustainable development. It advocates for modernizing procurement systems that are inclusive, transparent, and aligned with sustainable development goals, thereby improving the service delivery and fostering local economic development. And when I speak about all these ranges of services, we're looking at better revenue collection, the use of digital tools, encouraging community participation to increase bill repayments. This makes cities more financially stable, supports reliable service delivery. It also aligns with the SDG 11 and 16 by ensuring transparent and accountable governance. The flexible funding for basic services, where they are able to adjust conditional grant requirements to make funding easier to access, helping municipalities meet local needs in the water, sanitation, and infrastructure. This approach reduces inequalities to service access. Also, this approach supports SDG 10 And 9, by fostering equitable access to development opportunities across urban and rural municipalities. Further is public-private partnerships. We work with private companies on infrastructure projects like water and energy to share costs and expertise, leading to more efficient and well-maintained public services. SALGA offers guidance on structuring PPPs, particularly for large-scale infrastructure projects, helping municipalities to share costs and risks with the private sector partners. And the PPPs allow for greater innovation in service delivery and infrastructure finance. And this aligns with SDG 6 and 17 by promoting multi-stakeholder collaboration that ensures sustainable resource management. And finally, last but not least, the capacity building aspect of localizing the SDGs in budgeting and implementation. Through the SDG-linked budgets, we provide training on sustainable development goals, so municipalities can better align their budgets with SDG targets, like clean water, good health, reduced inequalities. SALGA has rolled out training programs for municipalities to adopt digital procurement platforms, which streamline tender processes, enabling better market analysis and allow real-time tracking of procurement activities. By encouraging the digital platforms, we aim to reduce processing times and increase the transparency. Therefore, SDG 8 can be incorporated by funding projects that create jobs, stimulate local economies, while the SDG 11 is reinforced by planning budgets and prioritizing sustainable urbanization. Also, community engagement is very key for digital platforms and transparencies. As my previous, the mayor has mentioned, the community input is very transparent. We use digital platforms to engage citizens in budget planning and keep them informed, thus building public trust, and it helps cities prioritize services that meet real community needs such as housing, public transport, and this strengthens the trust in local government. By implementing these solutions, we feel that the South African municipalities can improve their financial health, service delivery, and alignment with SDGs, fostering sustainable and inclusive urban development. Part of our outputs is to increase the revenue collection by digital billing and public engagement, improved payment rates, boosting the municipal finances, better access to essential services, which targets grants and help expand water and sanitation services, reducing service inequalities. The productive public-private partnerships, collaborations with many of these companies and organizations provide funding and expertise for infrastructure projects, especially water management. Enhance transparency and citizen trust. Through the digital platforms, we allow citizens to see budget allocations, give inputs, improving trust and budget alignment with local needs. And SALGA has championed open contracting standards aligned with the National Treasury's Open Contracting Data Portal, allowing municipalities to publish procurement data openly. This initiative fosters public oversight and minimizes the risk of corruption. Through the lessons learned, we have learned about flexibility that matters, where we have to loosen the funding requirements to help cities access funds when they face capacity constraints. Training is also very key. It's through the budgeting alignment with SDGs, it's more effective when municipal staff are well trained. Digital tools to improve efficiency. Through the digital systems, we simplify the billing and increase the transparency, making financial management more effective. And then community involvement works, including the citizens in the budget decisions, leads to better prioritization of services, and we build public trust. And finally, in conclusion, we just, as South African local government, we say that aligning the procurement reforms with the Sustainable Development Goals, South Africa can create a system that is more inclusive, transparent, and efficient. Key focus areas include transparency, anti-corruption, capacity building, inclusivity, and innovation. And through these efforts, we'll advance SDG 16 and support other goals like SDG 4, SDG 8, 9, and 12. Overall, these reforms will contribute to more equitable and sustainable South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, and Clarissa. I'd like to highlight and appreciate the fact that you put the public procurement process within that larger context of the budgeting and public financial management, and how, you know, sometimes the challenges of the procurement process stem from that initial budget allocation and being able to get the income that is necessary, and how that trickles down into that adaptation of the public procurement processes. And especially like the ideas of being able to ensure that those that have to manage the budget but also carry out the public procurement, you know, could benefit from that training element around how to use it strategically to meet the goals, you know, the use of those digital tools as well to create and foster that accountability, but trust, to enable things like you know, engaging more providers and citizens around this process, as we heard as well in the presentation before. So before opening up for a broad round of questions, I would invite the other panelists as well to send Clarissa your questions first. Should we start on the other side of the table and then come back to Glenn and Clarissa? Thank you.
Clarissa, muchas gracias por tu participación.
Thank you so much for your participation. Quite interesting. In the case of the Dominican Republic, the budget allocation to town councils is based on a law where the central government is the one that allocates the funds directly to the municipality. We practically have no local taxes because everything resides on the central government. This is one of the problems in my territory. If I even had 10% of local taxes that are that large companies in Las Terrenas pay, I would not need the government budget. In the case of your country, the funds, are they based on an allocation of the central government? Or the territories have their own taxes?
Okay, thank you. Great presentation, Clarissa. And in the presentation, they have touched about how the PPP's public-private partnership role play a role to try to closing the gap between the big and the small authority. So, to what extent, or how you're dealing with this PPP? Is it they have some specification by the level of these municipals, or is they have one standard applied to all for the South African? Thank you.
I'm not really sure if it fits directly in your scope, but it's kind of along the lines of Eduardo's question. South African preferencing laws to sort of enable equity and or develop or enable the spend on equity, the SMEs and companies that are funded through that, are you getting the revenues now back from that? How does the circular money work in terms of you're getting the grants, but does anything come back? Yeah, to you to be able to increase it, or to the municipalities that effectively you're trying to help, because I would have thought that at some point you would try to create a sustainable cycle so the grant kicks it going, but then it should get into its own self-generation once those businesses are strengthened.
Thank you for the questions. I'll try my best to answer them. Firstly, when it comes to budget allocation, it comes from our national government down. So they get allocated a fiscal percentage each year, depending on the category of municipality. So it will depend also on how much population they serve, as well as how much revenue they generate from the population as well. So they will get a percentage according to that will be given to them. That's how the funding works to the municipalities. And then obviously revenue generation is through taxes, through rates, water and electricity. That they either, if they're electricity provider, that they sell electricity, and then they get that money back from the ratepayers. Also, water as well, they get billed for the amount of water, so they get that revenue back. But it's not always the case that they do. They are always defaulters and non-payers. So that's why the municipalities are not always very income generating, in a positive way. There's always that challenge that they have with communities that are not paying because they feel that essential services is a human right and it should be free, basic services. And then also there's a lot of indigent. So there's only a certain amount that they are liable to pay because they're indigent, so it really doesn't cover the amount that is really used. So municipalities most of the time, not all of them, but especially the smaller ones, they do run on a deficit. So unfortunately, that is a huge problem within our municipal space. Dealing with the triple Ps, we don't always, as SALGA, bring the triple Ps to the municipalities. They are welcome to also have their own agreements and find their own investors. But we as SALGA always give that support to them if they are needing to develop any contractual obligations or activities around what their priorities are. Then SALGA comes forward, we advocate for them, we lobby for them, and then we also advise them in various ways. So it's not always, in my profession, I work more with the international donors and funders, and that is how we then, when there's a call for funding, we then respond by assisting the municipalities within that corridor of the funding, and we also have activities as SALGA in our various business units that we are able then to assist municipalities through that funding to bridge the gap of capacity building, technical assistance, or it can be a whole range of things. Procurement can be one of them, and but there's other activities as well, like greening, more inclusive climate action mitigation measures that can assist municipalities in various ways. And then the circular economy, we as a SALGA are association of members. So municipalities are on a voluntary basis. They pay us a levy, but we then provide programs and services to them in terms of tools and any programs, activities that we are running for them, by them, that they actually tell us what it is that they're looking for, and then we develop programs that will assist them in terms of what their need is in that space. So the activities are run by us through that, and then we assist them with whatever, economy, circular economy that they're looking at, especially if there's waste. For instance, we will bring in either private companies or public companies, especially citizen organizations that will benefit for that. So we're very inclusive in having everybody around the table to being, so that they can get the economy working on that money being, generated within their own community. So it benefits the municipality and then also the community around the municipality. But nothing comes to Salga except the levies from the municipality that assists us then to develop programs for them. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much for that. That concludes the very first part of this session. And again, thank you for Eduardo, Clarissa. And I would like to invite questions for them, for the broader public. So do raise your hand and we'll make sure to get your questions. Yeah, in the back. Should we try to get 3, 4, and then answers, and then another batch if necessary, okay?
Yeah, ¿aló? ¿Sí? Gracias.
So my question is for Eduardo. Eduardo? So I have a couple of questions for you. The first one is the following. With the aim of being more inclusive, what was the main obstacle you faced within the process of formalizing local providers? And I'm asking this because this is a common problem in Latin America, where many suppliers somehow are reluctant to, going formal because they face technological barriers. I would like to know what tool have you implemented to formalize this process? And then my second question would be, within this package of processes or strategies, did you include any kind of tax incentives So one of the reasons why some of the local suppliers sometimes do not want to access the formal market has to do with taxes and tax management. And I would like to know if there has been any tax incentive to encourage this formalization process. Hello, my name is Abdallah Harri, and I'm from Mauritania. I was meant to share a presentation, but I will decide to just do a short intervention. Our region, with 1.5 million inhabitants, the investment rate from the state is 16%, 30% of the budget comes from the government, local tax, 12.7, financial deficit, lack of resources, dependency, excessive dependency from external funding. Now recommendations. Improving financial sources, improving tax collection, and moving forward in our efforts to improve access to clean water, sustainable water, etc. all this to implement projects that are in the process of being executed now. To overcome the financial challenge, it would be key to take specific measures. This includes enhancing existing financial mechanisms and exploring new ones with innovative sources that allow you to better respond to local needs. In parallel, it is essential to improve project management and project governance to improve its efficiency and efficacy. Last, promote consultation between key stakeholders, which will be key to develop a roadmap and an adapted agenda. In this way, the initiatives will be key to grant a sustainable and fruitful future for our communities. Thank you.
At this time? Yes, please.
My question goes to the mayor. You talked about the SMEs being included. Most of the SMEs lack capacity. I don't know, in the new bill you said you presented, which was passed, did you include any advance payment to the SMEs, maybe to boost in terms of implementation when you've procured them? The second question, no, I think that's all.
Good. We'll take a pause there, and then we will let our speakers answer. ¿Quieres empezar?
Bueno.
Now when it comes to the main challenge we are confronted with throughout the process, well, the lack of participation of many stakeholders in the process. But as it turns out, we've realized that it has more to do with the lack of knowledge regarding the existence of this legal framework. And this is why we decided to set up a program, a skills uplifting program, in order to, raise awareness about the existence of such programs. In fact, and this has to do with the second question, it's not so much a problem of formalizing the thing, it's rather a lack of knowledge and many fears, because, there are many people who work in the informal sector who are doing very well, and they do not have any tax number, they do not have to pay taxes, right? And this is one of the main problems they are confronted with. They say, listen, when they register me, I will have to end up paying a lot of tax. And, well, of course, you're going to be earning more, but this means that you will need to pay back, right? So that the city can build the necessary environment. And I believe that the main winner has been the community. We've formalized them, we have included them, they are now producing goods and services, and at the same time the community is recovering taxes, which is very much needed. Now, this has to do with the question you asked, right? When it has, regarding the SMEs, the program also included alternatives to promote the engagement of SMEs, such as some tax incentives, tax exceptions, but for a short period of time. After this period of time, there were no more exceptions. Now, the most important thing has to do with the fact that today they have like bank credits. We've realized that it's been a win-win. It's been a win-win for both sides.
then we're going to take a little trip further east. If you notice, we are just making our way around the globe. And I would like to invite Rosaidi to tell us a little bit more about the work to promote sustainability through public procurement.
Okay, thanks, Jose, and good afternoon all. So I'm Rosaidi Mahad. I'm from Hang Tuah Jaya Municipal Council, one of the cities in Malaysia. And today I will share about how the public procurement or the green procurement will help us to achieving our vision as sustainable cities. Okay, this is some of the city context for Hang Tuah Jaya. The first, in Malaysia, we still have a three-layer government. We have a federal or central government, and then we have Malacca as a state government and Hang Tuah Jaya as a city government. So this is a multi-level governance when we talk more about how the financial mechanism and it's all reflect to how this three-layer government interacts. And in terms of the detail of the cities, we just established on 2010 with some area around 145 square kilometers. And the population almost 200,000. And in terms of the economy, in terms of the GDP, currently in Malaysia, for the small municipals, we not yet have the figures. And the figure is more always at the stage of the states. But we are now in progress to try to calculate our current city GDP. But we can focus in terms of the city income expenses. For the year 2023, our income at 25 million USD, and our expenditure is more about that figure, because we need to make sure the expenses or expenditure is not beyond the income, because in Malaysia, all the municipals is run by our own collection with some funds from the national or central government in terms of the physical project and others, not in terms of the money injections. So, and almost the expenditure is cover for the public works, infrastructures, also waste management, and some social work or social needs at the local level. So in Hang Tuah Jaya, we have a very clear target in terms of the sustainability. We try to target by 2030 to achieving the low carbon city status. And related to our discussion today, in Hang Tuah Jaya, we have very clear in terms of we have introduced what we call a green growth concept, where this concept we try to expand the activities in terms of the business, wealth, city wealth, and others. But at the same time, we try to reduce the carbon emission compared to the business as usual stage, and also benefit our local people in this area. So we have another 5 years to achieve that 2030. So, and related to the public procurement, one of the big movement in the city is where we try to transform from the conventional purchasing or procurement to the green sustainable purchasing and procurement. How we identify the conventional purchasing is more when we talk about the quality, about the price. And when we about the green or sustainable, more in terms of the how this procurement reflect to the environment needs, how they reflects to the social needs. So means at the city level, when we apply the green and sustainable purchasing procurement, we still put the quality and the price at the place, but we adapt with the environment and also the social needs. And in terms of the policies, in our document of Hang Tuah Jaya Climate Action Plan 2030, we have very clear, we embed the green procurement in terms of our first green economy initiative or action plan, and also 04 sustainable community and governance. So from this document, we leverage our public procurement, our green procurement, and indirectly is contribute to our sustainability target. So this is some of the initiative currently done in the cities, but it's just a part of all the activities. But here in the screen, what the main part we want to share is the number 1 and number 2 is more on the position of the city as an authority, as the regulator. So it means we put some condition, we put some the requirement. So we use the government green procurement, and also we put the green labeling to make sure all the supplier meet our standard on requirement. And the number 3 and the number 4 is more to the how the community, even from yesterday, we always talk about the community, how we engage the community, why the community needs to know what the current practice in the cities. So the number 3 is we try to do the SEPA program, communication, education, and public awareness. We do many interaction sessions, focus group discussion, and others. And also, and the number 4, we focus on the local consumption product. This local consumption product, example, we have a program with the women in the cities. We give them the advertisement banner is supposedly we send to the landfill. We try to recycle to become as a multi-purpose bag, and then we buy back from the people. So in terms of we can reduce the emission and the lifespan of the landfill, we also help the cities, especially the women, to increase their income. And at the same time, we try to expand this program to all the community in the cities. And the second, the local consumption product, also we run the program of the urban farming, where we encourage the people in the cities to do the urban farming, and we supply, or we encourage them, we top up, we fix them with some technical knowledge, some of the guidance, and now currently we expand to the market, how this group of the community can sell their product in the market with some assistance from the governments. Next, and 5, this is not on the regulatory, also not for the community, but this is our investment for the cities. And this is not just for the public procurement, but the overall idea for how to fight the climate change. We focus on our early childhood group. We do some program we call Hang Tuah Jaya Low Carbon Eco School. We give them the real experience, what the effect of the climate change and others. And they have a module, and one of the modules is focused on public procurement, or how green procurement, and why we need the green procurement. So this is some of the picture of how the program is currently done. And every year we have a summit there where all these schools have present their ideas, their achievement for the years, especially on the carbon reduction, and also how their project related to environmental. And this is for the output and lesson learned. For the first, as I said before, as a city level, we have a strength and opportunity. When we stay at the demand side, we can put some of the condition, and first we do some research and development. We increase our capacity building, stakeholders engagement, how the innovation through our universities and others, how we can try to solve the current issue at the local level. And also we try to introduce the flexibility criteria. As we know, the procurement is very tough, and when we implement at the local level, so maybe we try to give some flexibility in terms of how we meet or how we suit with the current needs. And the second, as a local government or cities, we do our regulatory basis tasks. So we put some condition on the technical requirement for the development approval, such as green building rating tools, rainwater harvesting, solar system, and street light. And also we contribute to the job creation for the infrastructure works, such as new project maintenance, green product, material, life cycle. So for the suppliers, we need the job or the task from the municipals. They must meet some requirement that's stated by the municipals. And as a conclusion, so in Hang Tuah Jaya, public procurement play a vital role in promoting sustainability. First, because they will influence the market of the behavior, how we change from the conventional to the green and sustainability. Second, how we create and benefit the supply and demand side. So as a city, we stay at the demand side, how we influence our supplier and others to become as a green and environmental. Also, we encourage the adoption of environmental process, and also the last one is apply the monitoring, tracking, and evaluation process on contributing to the carbon reduction target. And this is very important since the Hang Tuah Jaya, we're going for the carbon reduction strategies. We calculate the emission carbon every year. So by applying this monitoring and tracking, we know how much the carbon every year, and we know which are the level currently and we can revisit our target every year. So I think that's all for now, and thanks.
Thank you very much. Very quickly to highlight the importance of planning and being able to identify your targets and tying that with the public procurement process. And as you mentioned, being able to monitor and understand where you want to go with public procurement, very important point. And the other thing that I really liked as well is the use of the different tools that governments have to be able to reach your goals. So you mentioned the regulatory, the education part, the programmatic element as well, so that gives an entire view of how to reach your goals with public procurement and adjacent processes. Now we're on time, we're short on time, let me say that, so I'm going to go directly to Glenn, and then we'll do a round of questions at the end, including from our panelists, if that's okay. Glenn.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jose. It's probably good just to start with a little bit of my perspective for why I'm here, because originally this was not related to my role in Statistics New Zealand. It was just a voluntary role in terms of kindly being invited by Diana to help support the guidance to cities around procurement and bring the central government perspective to that guidance. So she said, hey, come over to Barcelona, meet some of the people that you've been working with. That's good, accepted. And then she said, hey, why don't you speak? Okay. Bit of a trap, but hey, here I am. So based on that, I'm not really speaking on behalf of the New Zealand government as much here, because the way that the New Zealand government's structured is we have like system leadership. So where I work, we're the system leader for data. So I would also like to call out some of the discussions that have occurred in the last 2 days around data sovereignty and data ethics and privacy and all of this kind of information that the various cities are collecting that's going to obviously help and measure and improve all of those livelihoods. So that's all been very important to me, so thanks for that. I'll just show you a little bit about New Zealand, because Jose and I were doing a quick Google earlier, and my huge country is 5.2 million. I know because I work for statistics and we just finished our census. And it's got about 78 various regional and local councils. So if you look at just the Barcelona province, it's got more people and about 311 municipalities. But if somebody in the room actually has the real facts and want to correct me, please. So we're actually quite a small country, but very geographically diverse or spread. So that's the lay of the land. Why I talked before about not necessarily representing the government is because the functional lead for procurement, which is an area where I used to work, is in a different government department, and they basically produce the rules. So the rules are in their 4th edition, so they've gone through quite a change around moving originally away from the idea of how does government get control of all of this spend and save money, through to the value for money sort of phasing, which I hear about quite a bit today, through to the best public value. And the shift there is around starting to look at, within international trade agreements and laws, etc., how do we actually create those broader outcomes, and how do we actually generate opportunities for key priority groups within New Zealand and create that level of equity for our suppliers without necessarily, as I said before, breaking any of our agreements. So, just a quick context slide, as well as sort of establishing the rules. And by the way, those rules only apply, and this kind of goes back to Eduardo's comment earlier around being forced to use the rules. In New Zealand, only the central government has to use the rules. So they're there as opportunity for councils to adopt and run with them. But things like schools and councils, no, they're not forced to use any of these, and nor are they forced to use any of the contracts that are created. But part of the presentation I'm going to go through today is some of the reasons why you should use them, but just not necessarily in all cases. And talking a little bit to your situation as well, even when you are using them, you are allowed to write up exemptions and opt-outs within the rules. It's permitted in certain circumstances to do things differently. And it's probably a point to note that we've probably got some of the more flexible procurement rules in the world, because they really just come down to 4 principles. Well, 5 if you count follow the rules. And they're really about just getting the right supplier and being fair to suppliers and getting the product that you want. And if you follow the principles, you pretty much find you're following the rules, so that's all you really need to focus on. So underneath all of that, there is a bunch of people that create a whole pile of syndicated or all of government contracts that are available on the those types of web pages where you can do searches and find suppliers and just go ahead and basically pick them. So I think you're all pretty familiar with this sort of model. Some of the ones that I used to manage were like the ICT hardware and the travel and ICT software and print and stuff like that. So that's the previous life. I think that's just kind of just for context. So and the little thing down the right-hand corner there is just to give you an idea of the type of contracts that are sitting underneath each of these buckets. So anything that you've got that is kind of that back-end function, those core, the back-end function, the core support type contracts that you'd want, we should have them pretty much covered. So what I wanted to do now, and again, I don't represent any of these companies, I haven't asked permission to talk about them or anything, just some of the examples that we've got around how the government contracts are enabled to enable and grow local industries, and will enable is probably quite a good social enterprise example. So basically, City of Auckland started up there, father with a disabled child, started up a company producing cleaning products, basically under-sink type products. Now, if you think about it in terms of a national sort of contract structure, it's really hard for them to fit into or get contracts being so small. But what we were able to do with something like the national cleaning contracts that all of the government departments and councils and everyone else can access is those big suppliers basically carve out a little corner where the smaller ones, you can tick a box and opt them in, and so all your billing is still to the main supplier, it's all the transparency and stuff is, and all the admin is still, it doesn't change, but now you're trying to help a social enterprise. And one of the interesting things in this organisation is for X number of units that get sold each month, as that increases, every time they hit a target, they employ another person with a mental or physical disability. The other thing they do is that all of their products, they make them out of recycled plastic milk bottles, and they partnered with Z Energy, the national petrol, one of the national petrol companies, to basically do point and collect and pick-up points for all of the products. So they've actually partnered with somebody in terms of that's normally attributed with probably poor environmental type status to start to supply that kind of environment. And on economy, because of the way that it's grown and picked up, they've now opened another bulk facility in another city. So this kind of comes down to that idea is that we can use national contracts to pick up local suppliers and grow these SMEs into bigger and bigger successful entities, then it benefits the cities as well as they sort of spread around the country. Okay. At the local level, as I said before, you've got the chance to opt into using the contracts in New Zealand, but this one here I was going to touch on here is called procurement in a day. And I suppose the question I ask some people is, do you get the feeling that sometimes that the organisations that win the bids and you end up working with is because they've got the best bid writers, not necessarily the best products? And so the idea here is that if you, the long drawn out sort of paperwork side on identifying the capacity and capability of all of these organisations and creating all of the legal documentations, etc., structures, all sort of gets done at the central level, and then through search engines you can basically then pick and choose, and you know that these people, all of these suppliers have met a certain bar, and get them in and have a chat. And what that does is that you can start to talk directly to the people that are doing the work as opposed to the salespeople, and start to form more of an understanding and connection with the work that you actually want them to do in your councils, and therefore the result tends to be faster. And you know, quite often we'll get 4 different suppliers to each submit a statement of work. They'll just bring it in, we'll have a talk about it, we'll tweak a few bits, pick one by the end of the day and then award it. And because it's all based on templates and the contract's already written, job done, they can start work the next day. So that was just sort of one example of how you can improve efficiency. The other one is, if you think about like buying or supplying photocopiers into your organisations, how many of you have got, you know, 2 or 3 people dedicated just to photocopiers? Normally that's just nuts. But of course, if you've got a central organisation that's running, you know, 3,000 type customers, then they do actually dedicate 2 people just to specialise in these contracts. Now this example here was a 200 million US fraud that occurred in New Zealand and across Australia. It wasn't a fraud against the actual customers, it was an internal accounting fraud that resulted in 4 of the executives, including the chair of Fuji Xerox, to resign in Japan. And in many respects, it's because they're using their own contract and their own paperwork, right? So they can use their own loopholes. Whereas the central governments, because they've got those dedicated people and know the systems, can put the contracts in place to actually prevent the types of fraud that these sort of accounting exercises can create. And then just another, this is just a sort of left field example here of how central government can encourage growth in SME level. So the Ministry of Education controls all the bus routes, or basically does all the procurement for them. So the easiest way to do is bundle them all up and just give them to large providers. But what they've done here is basically they took the first 10% individual routes and allowed the market to self-select. So you can bid for the individual routes in the first round. But if you win them, you can't bid for the bigger pieces of work in the second round. So it's just one example of how we structure the central government procurements to ensure that smaller industries in the local regions can get the work first. That's me.
Thank you so much, Glenn. So last round of questions for the day, very quickly. And while you raise your hands, just to highlight, you know, I love the fact of thinking not about the process, but about, you know, those core principles, and as well, you know, these ideas of global contracts and ways to be able to make the process more efficient, with the goal to be able to, you know, get the contracts done and out in a very quick and easy way. Any burning questions? Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Amos van de Satia again from Freetown, Sierra Leone. An amazing presentation from my brother from Malaysia. And looking at the presentation, it's amazing. from the climate action plan to how you've been able to look at action and working with national government as well. I think one burning question from our side and something that we would love to take away on what you've just presented is around community engagement and behavioral change and looking at the regulatory framework as well in your city. How do you work with national governments to ensure that, let me just give you a context for Freetown, Sierra Leone, right? We have a national government that somewhat doesn't work well with the subnational government, right? So we try our best in terms of behavioral change, getting residents to adhere to certain things. We're talking about waste management, right? You have residents who are connected to people in the national government, so that we use politics to not change their behavior. So how have you been able to work well with national governments to ensure that people listening to what is being said at subnational level? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question in the back.
Merci. Ma question,
My question is for the mayor from Uganda and also the Dominican Republic. You referred to the limitation of financial resources for the regions, and I would like to know if in Uganda you've tested a new concept. Up to recently, one spoke about corporate social responsibility. Have you tested what is called the regions social responsibility instead of, I mean, companies it's an innovative concept to, enhance public procurement processes. Thank you.
No more burning questions, so I'll hand it off to our speakers. Just one clarification, when you mentioned Uganda, did you mean Malaysia? Or was it from the previous session? The previous, okay, good. So let's answer these questions, and maybe the colleague from Uganda can quickly address that if possible before we close up. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I think the question is more how the coordination between the central government, state, and city government. So in Malaysia, we have a very structured in terms of the coordination, even though at the federal level, we have a council. We call it the Climate Change Council, whereas the cities and the states need to report all the initiatives, all the activities at the to get some fund, to get some support from the federal government. But it's not to the limit the flexibility or the how the cities can be innovate. So as long as we have a very clear in terms of our direction, so and even in Malaysia, in terms of the provision, we have a constitution, we have a federal, we have a state, we have the cities. So we have some sharing the constitution. So they have more flexibility at the local level to do as long as not enter or not interrupt what are the policies at the national level. So normally we just get what are the statement or the policy. Let's say the policy is very general. The cities must accelerate in terms of the maybe the circular economy. So how to implement? This is subject to the cities, and we use our resources, our as a local setup, how we can the best way. Then after that, we need to get back to the federal to give some the ideas, and also tap if they have any some fund and others. So I think in nature that's the way how we, so means from the bottom to up the approaches. I think that's, is it the answer? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Eduardo, I think there's a question for you as well.
Yeah, when it comes to the limitation of financial resources, in the Dominican Republic, we say that mayors are the permanent firefighters, right? Because the problem when it comes to, the national budget is designed on the grounds of a bill which is so old-fashioned, and also with regards to a census which is updated every 10 years. Until 2020, our allocated budget had been approved in 2010. And in order to change this, you need to update the bill, and it takes like 10 years to do so. So you have to get live with the same budget for 10 years in a row. It's the central government who has most mandates in the Dominican Republic. As local governments who've been empowered, today there is a debate at the National Congress to update the bill running city councils. The bill says that 10% of the budget, of the GDP rather, shall be allocated to municipalities, where in fact we're being allocated 2.5%. Next year there will be an important increase. We'll have an extra 40%. This is not what we need more, but it's better than nothing. Now with the update to the bill, what we'll do is that we'll have resources, we'll be capable of collecting taxes and services that we're not collecting now, and this will allow us to decentralize This has allowed us to have additional funds. In fact, the government is also supporting us in developing infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure. So yeah, we do have a limitation, but at the same time, we're doing an extra effort to count on different resources.
So much. So if I may, and apologies for this, may I ask that you connect with a colleague of Uganda as we need to wrap up, and then I don't want to take time from our reporter. Very quickly, in 1 minute 30 seconds, if you can, and thank you so much for your efforts through the entire conference.
Thank you. I'll try to do this in 1 minute. So summarizing our discussion in this session, the panelists emphasize ways of ensuring transparency, ensuring transparency and accountability in the procurement process. So they spoke about the use of using digital platforms, using participatory approach, and they also spoke about the formalizing and including informal suppliers to increase transparency and accountability. They also mentioned the importance of empowering the community and engaging them constantly in the procurement process. Also spoke about the importance of building capacities in budgeting so as to ensure that procurement processes reflect, it's reflected in the procurement process. We also need to align procurement reform efforts with SDGs to address the procurement challenges. And then we also mentioned the importance of how a successful public green and sustainable purchasing or procurement can be achieved. And this was done through communication, education, and raising public awareness. And we also looked at the importance of designing procurement process, being intentional to include local suppliers so that we can create opportunities for them. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. So don't worry, we're wrapping up. There is no another half an hour. Don't look at the agenda. I always leave this kind of buffer because I know that the sessions come late. So maybe, Catherine, you want to give us, so we're just going to give the floor to Catherine to give us some basic ideas about what we did today. Then if someone has some last intervention that you want to do, we have like around 5 minutes, and then I will thank everybody and we can go lunch. So over to you, Catherine.
Okay, so what I've tried to do here is to just bring the key ideas that run through the whole, like all the sessions. And I think one of the things that we kept discussing, or that ran through all our discussions, was the importance of engaging citizens to ensure that the processes that we use are transparent and accountable. And we also spoke about the importance of the key role of multilateralism in promoting knowledge sharing and knowledge exchange. We also looked at how collaborations through public-private partnerships would help support innovation and efficient delivery of public services. And in all our discussions, there was the need to always consider the vulnerable to ensure inclusion so that we leave no one behind. And the issues about environmental considerations and the impacts on future generations also kept coming up. We also looked at the concept of building trust among citizenry through to increase transparency and accountability. And I think one of the key things that was raised is each time we are doing something, we need to ask why we do what we do. Thank you.